What's going on, everybody? This is Moss Money here, and we are here for a special edition of Money Pot Betting Sharps Corner, the first ever mock draft version one. You'll see a couple of these come along the line, but Sharp wanted to get out here and get you guys going and have a little fun with what he feels as of right now is his first version of mock draft. So we're going to pass it on to Sharp. Sharp's going to tell me the pick, and we're going to go down the line here.
With that being said, I think it's pretty clear. Like, I don't think the Bears are going to do anything crazy, right? Like, they're not going to keep Fields and build like they're drafting Caleb Williams. So you're not going to overthink the room. I have heard maybe Washington tries to make the move. I don't think Chicago is going to overthink the room here. I think this is Cincinnati with Joe Burrow, right? Like, Miami could call and call and call. The Chargers could call and call and call. That pick's not available. I don't think this pick's available. So just put Caleb Williams in, number one. He's going number one.
With the first pick in the draft, the Chicago Bears pick Caleb Williams.
Yeah. And I like what he's doing, right? Like, everyone's saying, maybe him and Marvin Harrison Jr., why didn't they do what they had to do? You go to the combine to elevate your draft status. Well, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Caleb Williams can't elevate their draft status. So you don't need to go parading yourself around, getting poked and prodded, doing all the medicals for all 32 teams. You don't need to do the interviews. Those guys don't need to do that. They've made several $1 million a year in NIL. Like, they're not beholden to the NFL teams like the players in the past were. So I want to be very clear. This is going to be a thing to come. You're going to see superstar players, a lot like the COVID year when your Rashawn Slaters, your Micah Parsons, and your Jamar Chases said, you know what? My tape's good enough. I don't need to put another year out there. And so they didn't play, and it didn't impact their draft status. It's the same thing here. Caleb Williams is going number one. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be the first non-quarterback off the board. It's just don't overthink these things.
On the clock, the Washington Commanders, pick 2.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing here, what's funny is the new owner of Washington, he's a basketball guy, right? Josh Harris. I'm a Sixers fan. I'm an Eagles fan. He owns the Sixers. He's the majority owner, I should say. He's not the outright owner. He's the majority owner. He's the majority owner of the Washington Commanders. Well, the quarterback that's on most people's board and my board, number 2 quarterback overall, again, purely on ceiling. I think he has a higher ceiling than Jayden Daniels. Do I think Jayden Daniels and Michael Penix are better quarterbacks right now than Drake May? I do. Do I think if in the right system 4 years from now, do I think Drake May has the tools to be better than those guys? I do. And so when you're trying to change your franchise, like Washington's trying to do with a new owner, you go for the highest ceiling, not for the highest floor. So they're going to take Drake May. And in this scenario, I think what's funny is Drake May comes from a basketball family. He's the only guy that decided to play football. The rest of his family's all basketball stars from North Carolina. And Josh Harris being a basketball guy, this is just a no-brainer that Washington's going to take the basketball family.
With the second pick, the Washington Commanders take Drake May. On the clock, the New England Patriots.
If this was the old regime, I think this would be Marvin Harrison Jr. or even Joe Alt. However, it's not Bill Belichick. He's not controlling the draft. I think their young coach is trying to just kind of – I almost think the Kraft family too, right? Like, it's funny how this whole dynasty thing comes out as they're transitioning away from Bill Belichick. Notice how Bill wasn't really in it, and it's kind of all spun from the Kraft family's perspective, and not even really Robert. It seems like it was almost Robert's son that kind of was the guy pushing the narratives in that documentary. And I think he's kind of controlling the franchise low-key. I think Robert's at the top, but I think, he knows that the son is set on his legacy, and it's time to set his son up. And I think his son and the new coach, they're okay with going in a different direction of a quarterback they haven't seen. Brady was pocket passer. Mac Jones was a pocket passer. Cam Newton at the end of his career was a pocket passer. Well, Jayden Daniels is the opposite of a pocket passer. You bring him to use his legs as a weapon, not just to set up the pass. So, I think this is a no-brainer here. You don't draft Marvin Harrison Jr. if you don't have the quarterback you like. So, because otherwise what's going to happen is Harrison Jr. is going to elevate the status of Mac Jones to the point you're like, oh, do we need to keep Mac? And then you're Daniel Jones with the Giants and you regret what you did. So just cut ties, end Mac Jones' career, and draft Jaden Daniels.
With the third pick in the draft, the New England Patriots select Jaden Daniels. Ooh, that was kind of surprising to me. But I get it. Need a quarterback, and I think who's there? Is it May? Is the head coach the linebacker?
Yes,
Jared Mayo.
Jared Mayo is their new. Yes,
yeah,
correct.
yeah.
And so I think that just fits the personality of the coach, right? I think you kind of got an Antonio Pierce style coach that's going to lean on emotion and defense, and he's going to want that dual threat play. Think of your defensive coordinator. What keeps you up at night is the guy that you do everything right. You win as a pass rush. He makes a guy miss. He's out the back door for 40 yards. Like, you can't scheme against that. So, sorry about my phone. I don't know what happened here. So yeah, I just think Jared Mayo's in his sleep is going to think it's harder to defend a guy like a Jaden Daniels than a Michael Penix from a defensive perspective. So for him, it's going to be his input's going to be to take Jaden Daniels.
And another key thought about that too with Mayo is that his first draft, his first ever pick, top 3 pick, everything's riding on that pick. So
exactly,
I agree with the logic. I don't agree with the pick. I think you take the best player in Harrison, but I get it. Next, Arizona Cardinals are on the clock, and it seems like this draft has fallen exactly the way they needed it to.
Yeah, I mean, this is this is the benefit when you're Arizona, right? Let's talk a little bit about last year too, and we'll pull it full circle. Kind of how I like to bring little extra things in with the Drake May basketball family, Washington basketball owner. Last year, when you've got an established quarterback, some people might think Kyler Murray's this, Kyler Murray's that. Kyler Murray's a good football player, and you've already paid him. You're not going to move on from Kyler Murray. You're not going to pull the plug. He's not Russell Wilson where he has no chance to revive himself because of his age and just his career arc. He can get better. He can improve. He just needs tough coaching and better organizational structure around him. So last year, what happened? They weren't pressed to take a quarterback, so they could just sit there and let the best offensive tackle in the class, Paris Johnson Jr., fall to them. Anchor position, now you've got a left tackle you need, Ohio State. This year, they don't need a quarterback. They can just sit and get the best non-quarterback in the draft fall right in their laps, another Buckeye. So now you put an anchor position in playmaker quarterback and offensive tackle, 2 guys that know each other individually. So like right away, your anchor positions for 10 years are guys that get along. And they can, these are professionals now. There'll be some tough love. I'm telling you right now, Marvin Harrison Jr., his work ethic is that of a quarterback. The dude shows up at 4 a.m. and leaves at like 7 p.m. If Kyler Murray's not there doing that, people will notice. You make the pick. There's some comps out there. I don't know what everyone else's comps are. To me, like Larry Fitzgerald I don't see the Larry Fitzgerald comp. I think Andre Johnson. If anyone remembers Andre Johnson for the Houston Texans, that dude was a handful for about 10 years. That to me is who Marvin is.
We just went to the Hall. So
yeah.
With the 4th pick in the draft, the Arizona Cardinals select Marvin Harrison Jr. With the 5th pick, Los Angeles Chargers are on the clock.
So this is very interesting, and this is where I kind of think there's a pivotal turning point in at least my draft. I think there's 2 teams that need to talk to each other here. One team is all in on next season, and then if it goes bad, they're going to hit the reset button, and that's the New York Jets, right? Everything's on Aaron Rodgers. They have a chance to win. We've talked about the division. The Bills are in salary cap hell, and they're older players. They can't get rid of them. So who knows? I mean, they can't rely on Tre'Davious White. They can't rely on Von Miller, but they can't cut them. They're in trouble. You saw what happened to Miami today. They had to let Christian Wilkins, their second best defensive player, however you look at him and Jalen Ramsey, they had to let him go. They had to let Jerome Baker, one of their best off-ball linebackers, go. They're in cap hell. Vic Fangio left. So we talked about that division. The Jets can win, and the Jets can put themselves in a contender position if Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, right? He can elevate those around him. That's what we've seen in his career. He needs a left tackle. The Chargers have a left tackle. In my opinion, the Chargers, with bringing in Jim Harbaugh and where the Chiefs are at, the Chargers are a year away from kind of being a contender. They need to reset, get a little younger, build anew, restart a foundation. Jim Harbaugh needs to fix all the bullshit that went through Herbert's ear because he had nonsense in his ear for the last 3 years. Jim's got to fix that. It's a reset year. Make a trade. The Chargers don't need to pick at 5. I like Neighbors. I like Adunze. I like Joe Alt. Those are fantastic football players. They just don't – the Chargers don't need that. The Chargers need extra assets. They need to get younger at several key positions. But what do the Jets need? They need a left tackle. They don't need much else. Their defense is locked and loaded. Yes, they need a couple playmakers, but they can get playmakers on day 2, day 3 of the draft and in the free agency and just be like, Rodgers, you got to elevate these guys because of how much we're paying you. So, in my opinion, you make the trade here. It's pretty simple. The Jets don't have a second-round pick, so the Jets offer their number 10 overall, their third-round pick, and their fourth-round pick. The Chargers move back.
Let's see if we can make it happen.
When you look on the trade value chart, it's pretty dang even.
Let's see, and the Jets. So we're trading the first pick from the Chargers, and then what picks from the Jets?
Those first 3, 10th overall, the third rounder, and the first of the. You could I mean, however you want to do it. One of those fourth rounders, it really doesn't matter. I mean, they're 2 picks apart. The trade value chart is inconsequential, and that's a fair trade. And that's the Jets are overpaying a little, but it's for a major need at a position, and they're getting the best tackle in the class with 0 exceptions. So to me, you make the move, you get Joe Alt. Now all of a sudden you keep Aaron Rodgers clean, and maybe you have a chance.
With the 5th pick in the draft, there was a trade. The New York Jets traded with the Chargers. With the Chargers.
Yeah.
New York's on the clock. The pick is in. Going Joe Alt. Tackle. Notre Dame. I like it. That shit. We doing trades in this bitch.
I don't want to get too crazy. I have heard some rumors that the Giants are done with Daniel Jones. I'm not there yet. Maybe they draft a youngster. I think this is too early to reach on a Penix. I just think it's a little early when you're in the contract situation you are with Daniel Jones, where you'd have to eat the money, and then you'd have Penix fighting Jones. It'd become a real ugly season, and then the head coach is on the hot seat. So I don't think you want to. I think you want to avoid that. I think if the Giants were going to cut Daniel Jones and pull the plug, they would have done exactly what the Broncos did and made it very clear before the league year, we're done with our quarterback. They didn't do that. They're not going to just eat $40 million on a young quarterback. No one's trading for Daniel Jones. So in my opinion, you have one option. You get the best playmaker in the draft, whether it's Bowers. Some people like Rome Odunze. Some people like Malik Neighbors. I personally have Brock Bowers, the highest player on my board at this point in this current scenario. But I do think, given where Daniel Jones is and where the Giants are, you need explosive players. So I would actually go with Malik Neighbors here.
With the Giants on the clock, the New York Giants select Malik Neighbors, receiver, LSU. Tennessee's on the clock.
Yeah, Tennessee's probably a little heartbroken. They were probably thinking Alt was going to fall to them, right? They're thinking the Chargers probably aren't taking a left tackle. The Giants aren't taking a left tackle. We're probably getting the pick of the litter, and then here come the Jets. So they're probably a little heartbroken. I wouldn't take Olu Fashanu. He's got a lot of upside, but again, the Titans need a player that creates like a physically dominant player. Fashanu is kind of a year away, in my opinion. And when you've got a running quarterback, a young kid like they just drafted last year, you need to set a physical tone. And there's no more physical tone setter in this draft, in my opinion. And that includes Joe Alt. Like, the guy I'm about to mention is a better run blocker than Joe Alt, and that is Talisi Fuaga. He is just a true right tackle. Some think he has the feet to be left tackle. I wouldn't mess with it. You could keep him at right tackle all day long. This guy's a future All-Pro, Pro Bowler, just a dominant football
With the 7th pick in the draft, the Tennessee Titans take Talisi Fuago, Oregon State tackle.
Yep.
The Falcons are on the clock.
So I'm going to preface this by saying this is where I do think something gets a little crazy. I think Atlanta Falcons signed Kirk Cousins. His wife's from Atlanta. Their second home is in Atlanta. I've heard Arthur Blank does not want to roll the dice in the draft on a young quarterback. He's tired of doing that. He's an 80-plus-year-old owner. He thinks the team is ready to win. He's seen what a veteran quarterback that moves into the division with a ready-made team. I mean, let's face it, Atlanta's got offensive weapons, a decent O-line, a pretty good defense. They spent money on safeties last year. Everyone likes A.J. Terrell, their number one corner. Remember Jesse Bates? He's one of the best, if not the best safety in the NFL. They're pretty good. They need a pass rush. And so I think if you're looking at Atlanta and you're Arthur Blank, I'll overpay. I think where Minnesota's hang up is they don't want to give that second year to Kirk Cousins. And Kirk Cousins is demanding that second year of guarantees. Well, no better team, right? You got a desperate owner with a team that's actually ready to win, and they don't want to roll the dice that Justin Fields can take the jump. They know Cousins is the guy that can maybe be a Tom Brady and come in at the twilight of his career, change the culture at the quarterback position, and take the team on a magic carpet ride in a division that's not very good. So I'm assuming they signed Kirk Cousins, and so you're going to give me the best pass rusher in the draft here. You can argue whether it's Latu. He's the best technician in the draft, so he's got the best pass rush plan. He's got 6 or 7 counter moves, spin moves, counter chop, double hand swipes. I mean, this dude's got it all. So I would say he's got the highest floor. However, you just don't find guys like Jared Verse that are 265 plus pounds, 270 pounds, bench pressing 225 pounds 30 plus times, and running sub 4.740. Like you're talking like at the worst, he's Jadeveon Clowney. Like freak of nature, like he's just going to bull rush his way into 50 career sacks. Atlanta cannot stop anyone in the run on the edge, and they also can't get a pass rush. Jared Verse can do both. He might not have the highest upside as Dallas Turner or Latu, but he is a dominant edge setter. Think of like a Josh Sweat, just good at everything. So give me Jared Verse.
With the 8th pick in the draft, the Atlanta Falcons select Jared Verse, defensive end, Florida State. The Bears are back on the clock.
This worked out perfect for them, right?
Yeah,
they got Caleb Williams. They did the trade back. They did the trade last year. They end up with the first pick to get Caleb when they obviously looking back, maybe you'd hope to get CJ Stroud, but it is what it is. Now you get Caleb. You're going to get something for Justin Fields. We can talk about that in another pod, what we think he gets for him. We're not going to talk about that much on this draft show here in particular. But everything's working out for them, right? Now you have DJ Moore, who somehow Carolina let get away when they have a young quarterback. Now you pair Caleb Williams with a veteran receiver that knows what he's doing, and now you bring in a young receiver who, by all accounts, I mean, you just saw the character at the combine. The kid's a hard worker. He doesn't have the upside of a Marvin Harrison Jr., but he's pretty darn close. I think he has a chance to be a Devontae Adams-level football player. Give me Rome Odunze. You give Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, and DJ Moore, look out.
With the 9th pick in the draft, the Chicago Bears take Rome Odunze, Washington receiver. Bears winning the draft so far.
I'd say so.
Chargers on the clock, 10th pick.
Yeah, so we talked about it. The Chargers, they're in a good spot, right? They're kind of rebuilding, but they also have the quarterback. They're kind of where I talked about with Arizona, right? They can just just let things fall to them. They have their quarterback. They have their coach, unlike Arizona. So they've got that going for them too. So we did the small trade back. Now this is looking great. Jim is licking his chops. He's got good offensive linemen he can choose from. He's got good defensive pass rushers he can choose from. But man, we know Jim Harbaugh likes tight ends, right? So we did a small trade back, picked up a 3rd-round pick, picked up a 4th-round pick, and I get one of the best playmakers in the draft. So now I get Keenan Allen and I get Brock Bowers. Oh, sign me up. Man, Justin Herbert, he's so happy right now. He's on cloud 9.
With the 10th pick in the draft, the Chargers select Brock Bowers, tight end, Georgia. The Vikings are on the clock.
So this is where it gets interesting, and this is where I'm going to defer from a lot of people in this league. And I'm talking about media guys and people plugged in and people who bet on the draft. This is probably way high for this player, but I truly don't care. This is how I feel about the player. And this is how I feel about the fit, the personality fit, the culture fit, the scheme fit, everything fit. Give me Michael Penix Jr. I think Minnesota is going to let Kirk Cousins walk, and they're going to get the best pure passer in the draft and pair him with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, and he's just going to be like Washington 2.0, except for he's indoors. I mean, if Michael Penix could fall to the perfect team for how he plays and the wide receivers, I mean, this is like unbelievable. You give him that tight end that they stole from Detroit, and you give him those receivers, Lord, I mean, Michael Penix would be instantly up there for Rookie of the Year.
With the 11th pick in the draft, the Minnesota Vikings select quarterback Michael Penix Jr., Washington. The Broncos on the clock. Good luck.
This is something I've been thinking about for a while now, and off chat, I've talked about with Diddy quite a bit about how I think the league thinks about these quarterbacks. I think it's a little inverted, and I do agree with him that JJ's the last of the bunch, and that's how I personally see it. But I do think he sneaks in, but he's not going here. I think the perfect fit in this draft, especially now that they cut Wilson and they know what's going on. So here, look. You've got $35 million in dead money this year attached to Russell Wilson, $53 million next year. Say that again. 35 this year, 53 next year. You need a rookie on a rookie scale. So that combine that with the rookie, you're still only paying $50 million a year, which, hey, that's crazy, but they made that bed. They got to sleep in it. You cannot afford to have a veteran making 15, 20 million on that dead money with Russell. There's no player that reminds me of Drew Brees. No player like Bo Nix. He's not athletic as you would want, but he's athletic enough. The dude can dunk a basketball, just like Drew Brees. He 77% completion percentage in college. Yes, a third of his throws are behind or at the line of scrimmage. It was a bubble screen offense. I get that. But guys, Drew Brees was the same thing. It was dink and dunk or shots over the middle. And that's how Bo Nix plays. This is a perfect coach quarterback fit. I know it's probably early, but that's how this draft's going to be, guys. I got Penix already going. The QB run way started at 1. Give me Bo Nix.
Wow. And a shocker. The Denver Broncos, Sean Payton, real Sean Payton era because he's cleaning house. Take quarterback, Bo Nix, Oregon. I like it, though. He's a Sean Payton type of guy.
Exactly. He's like a basketball point guard. He'll get everyone involved.
Yeah. Leader, too. Been around for a while.
Exactly. He's 55 starts. This dude can take over an NFL team and call a game tomorrow. Remember how hard Russell Wilson couldn't even call the plays, for some reason? And he had to get the arm sleeve, and just when all went bad. You won't have any of that here, I promise
you. All right. Raiders on the clock.
So this is interesting. Remember I said Atlanta wasn't the team to go out and make the move for Fields. And I didn't do the trade that some people have with Vegas, which does make sense, right? I totally get it. Antonio Pierce recruited Jaden Daniels in college and coached him. So, I get it, guys. I totally get the fit. But sometimes the pick's just not available. And I just don't think New England's coming off that pick because they don't want to take Fields over Daniels because you get job security when you take Daniels because you'll get 3-year runway from the ownership group. You take Fields and he bombs and you pay him, you're in Daniel Jones situation. And no one wants that as a coach. So They're going to take Daniels at 3. We've already discussed that. So here's Vegas. Now, Vegas has a chance to take Fields. I would do that. He's a culture fit. He's just kind of like a Jaden Daniels, just 2 years older and maybe a little it's hard to say. They're kind of the same player in college, in my opinion. When you go back and watch Justin Fields, when he had Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, he looked like Jaden Daniels at LSU. The only difference was at Ohio State, he had J.K. Dobbins and another running back that was running for 1,000 yards. He didn't need to be the 1,000-yard rusher. He can be the 1,000-yard rusher. We've seen that in the NFL. He just didn't need to be that in college, where Jaden Daniels had to be the whole team. So I think you're looking at a Justin Fields, Jaden Daniels is the same guy. It's that Spider-Man meme where they're pointing at each other. So you just go ahead and take the Jaden Daniels senior, I guess, and take Justin Fields. So then that leaves you in a good spot where you don't need quarterback. You don't need to reach for J.J. McCarthy. There's no player in this draft that Al Davis would want more than Quinyon Mitchell. I can assure you that. Everyone will say Xavier Henry or Xavier Worthy because of his 4-1 or 4-2-1, which is fine. But I'm telling you, Quinyon Mitchell's that dude. He's got swag. Al Davis would roll over in his grave if they did not take Quinyon Mitchell. First, that's my top cornerback. That's who you take.
With the 13th pick in the draft, the Raiders take Quinyon Mitchell. Where's he at?
They ain't even got him on there?
I mean, got him on here.
Scroll up.
Oh, yeah,
They
we
got him on there.
He got to have him in here. Yeah. Oh, shit. Right in front of me. Toledo. Cornerback. Now I think it really gets interesting because I think we're getting to the meat of the teams here where you got to be, do your research and know what you're talking about. So New Orleans on the clock.
New Orleans is in a tough spot. They made their bed with Derek Carr. They're kind of like the Giants. They can't afford to make that swing like Denver did. Denver's in a better draft spot than they are to cut bait with their current quarterback. So I honestly think they're going to have to run it back. They're paying their backup quarterback a ton of money too. The Taysom Hill thing was all bad, so they've got so much money allocated to quarterback. We'll just push that to next season. So you go with best player available. And in my opinion, there's a couple ways you could go here. Offensive line needs a little bit of help, but we got an aging quarterback, so maybe we can worry about that next cycle. Their star pass rusher, probably a future Hall of Famer, 100-plus sack guy. He's getting old in the tooth now, and they probably need to start upgrading pass rush. So I think you're looking at Dallas Turner or Laiatu Latu here. And I think Laiatu Latu is that perfect fit. He's that guy I talked about. He's got 5 counter moves. He's a guy that's ready to get 10 sacks in the league right now. He's ready to play. He's physically ready. He's got all the tools. He just gets off the bus sacking people. So he instantly impacts their defense.
With the 14th pick, New Orleans Saints take Latu from UCLA. I love this guy in the draft.
I do too. He's just a great football player.
Yeah, he's a great football player. He's instantly he's a double-digit sack guy without a doubt.
For sure.
Yeah. I love that pick. I love that pick with them, especially with Cam Jordan on the other side. He still got some.
Exactly. He's still got a little bit left in the tank, but his best days are they need their next Cam Jordan.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Love it. On the clock, Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, so this is another one that's a fun spot, right? Like they could go in a couple different directions. I think in their mind, they probably would wish one of those elite playmakers like a Bowers fell to them to give to Anthony Richardson. This is the tough one for me, right? Like in my opinion, this mock went really badly for them. Like what the Chargers did really hurt the Colts' feelings here. They probably were really hoping Bowers falls to them. But it's not all bad. They have issues at outside corner, and I think Terrion Arnold is the perfect kind of leader. Not just a good football player, but a kind of locker room guy that like you got your Anthony Richardson on offense. Now you got your MVP of your defense, like the guy that everyone looks to. A lot of times that's your linebacker. Sometimes it's your D lineman. Occasionally it's a cornerback. And I think Terrion Arnold is that kind of guy where a cornerback can be the leader of your defense, like spiritually.
With the 15th pick, the Colts take cornerback from Alabama, Terrion Arnold. He's the guy. He's the kid that made the speech, right, to his mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And their GM loves big guys. I'm telling you right now, like their GM does not take the Nate Wiggins of the world. He won't take your little 165-pound burners. He just does not believe in that. He believes in big, tall, 180-pound corners, 6 foot. Terrion Arnold fits the bill of exactly what their GM likes.
I like it. I like it. All right, almost halfway there. Well, actually, no, halfway there now. Seattle Seahawks on the clock.
So this is really interesting. They're probably another team that can't believe Michael Penix got taken from them. I think in their mind, remember they hired Ben Grubb, who was Michael Penix's offensive coordinator in college at Washington. Well, they hired him to be the offensive coordinator at Seattle. So a lot of people are starting to connect the dots where maybe they're the team to take Penix earlier than most people think. Well, I've gone a step further. We know what I think. I think Cousins goes to Atlanta, which some people have started to pick up on. Not everyone, but some. And I do think that Penix is a perfect fit in Minnesota. Just perfect with Kevin O'Connell and those playmakers. So I just think Seattle gets screwed here. And this is a tough one for me. Like, I would love Penix here. Perfect fit for Penix. If he doesn't go to Minnesota, I want him going to Seattle for him personally. So they're in a tough spot here. So what I think they do is there's a couple ways they can go, right? They don't need secondary help, although I will say, I shouldn't say that. They don't need cornerback help. They did just cut in real life. They did just release both their safeties today. Jamal Adams, Quadre Diggs, both released. Yep. So safety is a major need. However, I don't know that there's a player this early in the draft that's a pure safety that you'd be willing to take. I do love me some Cooper DeJean, but he wasn't able to test at the combine, and so I'm not exactly sure he would really fit their new head coach, Mike McDonald, who was, came from Michigan, came from Baltimore. He loves that jack of all trades safety. Think Kyle Hamilton. So I don't think they're going to reach for J.J. McCarthy here. And I know this is a little early for some people, but I think he's a DB of the Tyrann Mathieu, where he's not quite a corner. He's not quite a safety, but the dude's a stud. Give me Cooper DeJean.
Yeah, I like that pick. He fits them.
Exactly. You tell me you got Tyreek Woolen on the outside with Witherspoon and now DeJean, Hawk in the middle. That's a scary secondary.
With the 16th pick, the Seattle Seahawks take Cooper DeJean. God, I hate that pick. I want them for the Eagles so bad.
Yeah, that's another one. That's a Vic Fangio type player as well. I totally agree.
On the clock, the Jags.
Man, so another team they released they're one of their best players. Man, the Jags did some interesting moves today. The Jags released Darius Williams, who is a good, solid corner. And then they released, one of their most dependable players and a guy who logged 99% of the snaps last year on defense and one of their starting safeties. Now, they did draft Antonio Johnson from A&M last year as a kid I liked, so I'm assuming they're just going to elevate Antonio Johnson to full-time starting free safety or strong safety when they got the Andre Cisco kid from Syracuse who I like. But, man, they're letting 2 dependable DBs go, veteran DBs that are still not long in the tooth. So they're turning the keys to some young players. I think Jacksonville probably needs a corner. They could use some offensive line help. I mean, remember, Lawrence got rolled up on, and that's how their season ended. I don't trust their tackles here. Oh, this is kind of a tough spot for me. I would actually go.
You want to look at the picks? Who's on the bill? Who's on the board?
Oh, I know who's on the board. This is just so this is where I'm in a spot where, remember they so they've got 2 good pass rushers. I like their they obviously just tagged Josh Allen, so they're going to figure that out. So they're not going to go Dallas Turner, even though he's really high on my board. I think they got to go O-line, right? You're at the spot where you've got to protect your number one asset. Your franchise asset's Trevor Lawrence. You've got to protect him. I don't love Olu Fashanu, like ready-made, but his upside's too great here. I think they would stop the slide here. I think at this point you're either looking at Olu Fashanu or J.C. Latham as your two picks here. Give me Olu Fashanu. He just has a chance to be really, really good.
With the 17th pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars take Olu Fashanu, Penn State tackle.
And that's a tough one. I will say good luck to people out there doing early mocks. I'll be curious to see what people are putting the Jags, because that's a really tough one for me. Those last two picks were really tough. Indy and the Jags, that's a tough one.
The Bengals are on the clock.
Another team, man, I know some popular people like Daniel Jeremiah have been mocking Brock Bowers to them because of how abysmal the tight end spot is for Cincinnati, and kind of thinking ahead. Maybe you let Higgins go in a year, and then you got Bowers kind of as a replacement as your second best weapon on the roster. They're another team that's tough. I think you gotta kind of stick with what I just kind of been saying, right? You got to protect your best asset. You probably need a pass rusher. Yeah, every team could use another corner. It's too early for safety. But Joe Burrow didn't finish the season. He got hurt. Trevor Lawrence didn't finish the season. That's your franchise. Both those teams' seasons went to shit when those players got hurt. That can't happen again this year, where your whole coaching staff might be on the chopping block. So I just talked about the other player that I gave instead of Olu Fashanu. I just talked about J.C. Latham. Maybe a Tyler Guyton's in the mix. Maybe a Marius Mims is in the mix. Maybe a Fatanu is in the mix. But go ahead and give me J.C. Latham here. I just think his versatility as a pure mauling right tackle is just something Joe Burrow needs on his strong side.
With the 18th pick, the Cincinnati Bengals select J.C. Latham, tackle, Alabama. The Rams on the clock.
Man, again, probably the last time I'll mention this before I move on from that, but no team, I like to be super honest with when I'm right and when I'm wrong. There was no team in the NFL I was more wrong on last year than the LA Rams. Thought they were going to be bad. Their draft was unbelievably good. It totally vaulted their team from where I thought they were going to be to a different place. It re-energized their star players, and their star players looked young again. I mean, it was just and that's when you're thinking of the Eagles. I know this is an NFL-wide show, but we do focus on the Eagles sometimes. If you're an Eagles fan and you're like, man, we seem to be getting older. Now Kelsey retired. Like, what are we going to do? Sometimes just hitting on 4 or 5 young kids that all come into the locker room together, it's like a grenade, and it just energizes everybody. So if you're the Eagles, you need like a Rams-style draft where 4 or 5 kids all hit. The Rams are in a good spot now. I think they can contend, right? Like those young kids came out of nowhere, and if they all take that year 2 jump, like we're in the league, we belong. Now their confidence is sky high. You guys know how I feel about their coaching staff and their GM and their quarterback. It's elite across the board. They just need to get better on defense. I think they need a corner. So I think they're in a good spot here to add team speed. I think they need a pass rusher.
Yeah, I like Turner.
I think they need a defensive. Eventually, Aaron Donald's getting older, but you're probably too early for a Byron Murphy or a Sweat. But, man, if you're telling me for 1 year I can get a Dallas Turner on that team, dude.
Yeah, with
Donald.
Like,
yeah, he just seems like a Will Anderson, right? He's not as good, but rookie year you can probably count on 8 sacks. And if you drop that into their defense with the Byron Young they got last year, I mean, on the edge with Donald, and then remember the young rookie that pushed for defensive tackle rookie of the year that had more sacks than Jalen Carter. You're talking about a defensive front that is scary. You put Dallas Turner opposite the 3 dudes they already have, good night stopping the Rams.
With the 19th pick, the LA Rams select Dallas Turner, DN, Bama.
To me, if this happens in real life, no team would run to they would be sprinting to the podium. They might trip They might trip over themselves trying to get that pick in.
Yeah, I agree. And I could see if he fell that far, I could see the Birds moving up to grab him.
I could see that. Yeah, someone definitely, or Houston, like pairing Will Anderson with Dallas Turner.
Yeah, but
Like
I could see.
somebody could make a jump if he starts falling. I agree. Somebody could. That would
Yeah,
be a
because
spot to
who
look at
was
a big
19?
move, huh?
Cincy.
Yeah.
I could see Philly jumping in front of them, or
And
even
remember, I wanted to take Dallas Turner for those last two teams. Like he was my best player available, but I'm sitting there thinking, do you get the pass rusher or do you get someone that keeps your star player upright? And to me, those two teams, it's like the Cincinnati and Jacksonville, they've been in this position before, and every
yeah, I
time
could
they
see
chase
here
the playmaker or they chase the defender, and it bites them in the ass because their quarterback can't stay healthy. Get the offensive lineman. I know it's not sexy, and when Dallas Turner's dominating, you're going to be like, why didn't we get him? You just have to get offensive linemen in this league.
because I think if the Eagles sidebar here, everybody, and thanks to everybody for who's actually watching the mock draft. Make sure you hit the subscribe. Sharp's killing it as he usually does with his draft prep. Make sure you hit the like, hit the notification, and hit Sharp. Actually, drop a comment. Say Sharp's Corner in the comments for me if you can. But for the Eagles, for my Eagle fans here, it's a perfect spot to talk to Jacksonville here. I think one of these two tackles would fall to you at 22. Looking at what we have in front here, I know Pittsburgh, maybe Miami, maybe need some. No,
Miami's going to need a tackle, but Pittsburgh probably they need all offensive line help too. But they also need cornerback help in the worst way. And there's
Miami
probably a
needs
corner that
defensive
they
line
like.
help. With Wilkins walking, they're going to need some defensive line help.
They do. Miami's
Um,
in trouble.
and then Miami, I just saw on Twitter, Miami let their linebacker walk
Yep, Jerome
as
Baker.
well. Yeah, so Miami's in trouble. So I could see a tackle falling here. So this would be a perfect spot to get in front of the Rams if Turner falls that far. I would have to jump up and go get him, especially if you already rumors with Reddick being on the trading block, and we're not even re-signing him. Oh boy, do we need another playmaker on defense, and I would love Dallas Turner here. Keep it in the SEC, baby, with these Bama and Georgia Bulldogs that we keep going.
Yeah, I mean, if you were an Eagles fan, and obviously you'd be stashing him maybe for a year because you got Sweat and you got Reddick, and you know how that thing goes. The expensive guys play, and that's just how the NFL works. But if you were closing your eyes and you were envisioning the Eagles in 2 or 3 years with a Vic Fangio 3-4, and you had Dallas Turner and Nolan Smith as your off-ball rush backers, that's scary.
Yeah, and if Smith turns into what people
Well, I
want him
think
to
he
turn
will. I
into,
think Vic Fangio will unlock some things in him. I mean, the kid's got, and remember, he was behind Reddick, who eats up a lot of snaps. So, I mean, you got to give a guy like that a chance.
yeah, no, I and we will divulge into that once we get more into the NFC East division of how we fix the NFC East. But my thought was people thought he was going to be good today, and I'm like,
Yeah, I see
no,
what you're saying. Yeah,
he's not there yet.
Dallas Turner is a much more refined prospect than Nolan Smith was, without a doubt.
Yeah, agreed. All right, my bad. Too much monologuing. Pittsburgh.
No, you're
You're
good.
on the
That was
clock.
a good conversation because I agree. That's the spot to look.
Yeah. Pittsburgh on the clock at 20.
Man, this is a team where I feel like if Cooper DeJean falls to them, they would just be running to the podium. That feels like such a Steeler type player. You put Cooper DeJean next to Minkah Fitzpatrick as their two roaming safeties. And I mean, that would be like good luck passing. With Joey Porter Jr. press man, I mean, that's just like, I'm sorry, Steelers fans, it didn't work out for you. But if it works out in real life, you get Cooper DeJean. Look out. He's not available here. So, I know this isn't super popular. He's small, but he can run. And I think when you pair that with a guy like Joey Porter Jr., who's extremely long and physical, it works. So I actually, I do think Nate Wiggins is a good fit, but I just have a hard time in this instance. I would have a hard time thinking the Steelers would pass on a Kool-Aid McKinstry. over, like taking a Nate Wiggins over a Kool-Aid McKinstry, just because I feel like their pedigree, like I just feel like the style. And there's another name right there, Rake Straw. He's small, physical, fast. I do think that Steelers really need cornerback help here. Again, DeJean was perfect for them.
I feel like they need a receiver. That's just me, though.
You do, even with Pick, they got a lot of drama with receiver.
They do. Yeah. But Coleman,
To me, their biggest needs are corner and then offensive line help. They could use some help at tackle. They're another team where, again, I feel like it's going to be this draft. Like there's going to be a lot of teams that need either corner, like best defensive player available, or offensive lineman. I don't really love. I mean, Mims has crazy upside, but do they take a Mims? Remember they took Broderick Jones last year. Mims is like a Broderick Jones.
Yeah, what I'm thinking is just like that some of these names, and maybe I got to dig a little bit deeper myself, but when Pittsburgh Steelers pick players, they're Steelers. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed.
They're Steelers, and
that's why I'm going. That's why I think he might be a little less talented than the player above him, but I think a Steeler player is a Kool-Aid McKinstry. You put a Kool-Aid McKinstry with a Joey Porter Jr., those are like two peas in a pod. As like a human being. They eat, breathe, and sleep football. They might not run 4.4, but they're going to grab you. They're going to turn you. They're smart. They fit. So yeah. I think Wiggins has more upside because he can run, but I just don't think the Steelers would ever take a 165-pound corner with a guy like Kool-Aid sitting in front.
I agree with
you. So I like Kool-Aid here, actually. I think that's the fit. Because I agree with you. That's why I was thinking DeJean to them, because he's like a Steeler.
Yeah.
I think McKinstry is a Steeler.
Yeah, I agree here. With the 20th pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers take Kool-Aid McKinstry, corner, Alabama. Oh man, go the Dolphins and Cap Hill, Miami. You're on the clock.
Yeah, and so, I will say this worked out perfectly for Miami. They're in cap hell. They just let one of their best players walk. They have no chance of re-signing him, and that's Christian Wilkins. But one of the best pass rushing, gap shooting players in this draft fell to them here, and this is kind of a Christian. If you're honestly looking for a body comp, Byron Murphy is Christian Wilkins, just younger. This is kind of a no-brainer, right? Christian Wilkins was a part of that really good Clemson D line that had Dexter Lawrence next to him that Eagles fans know, the hulking nose tackle for the Giants. Well, Byron Murphy had another guy in this draft, Tavondre Sweat, a hulking nose tackle next to him. So he's used to shooting gaps next to a hulking nose tackle. This is a no-brainer pick for me. Byron Murphy can just literally slide right in where Christian Wilkins was. And obviously not be as good as a prime Christian Wilkins, but hopefully in 2 or 3 years will be that good of a player.
With the 21st pick, the Miami Dolphins select Brian Mitchell, defensive tackle, Texas. All tears are all flowing away. Arguably. No. I'm not even going to say arguably. I'm going to say it. The greatest Philadelphia athlete retired yesterday in a heartwarming, heart-filling speech and retirement speech in Jason Kelce. But your Philadelphia Eagles are on the clock. Pick 22.
Yeah, so another team where I think Cooper DeJean really fits. Like the Eagles need safety help. I like Sidney Brown. I like Reed Blankenship. But I think those two are just kind of Bs. Like when the Eagles have been really, really good on defense, they've had an A at safety. Like Brian Dawkins is an A+++. You're probably not ever getting that again. Even to think I'll luck into a Brian Dawkins isn't going to probably happen. But when they went to the Super Bowl, they had Chauncey Gardner Johnson Jr. He was a B+ or an A. When they won the Super Bowl, they had Malcolm Jenkins. He was a little older, but he was a B+ or an A. They eventually need to upgrade safety. I think it's too early to upgrade safety now. I think Tyler Nubin, although I do like him, I don't think he's quite a first-round safety. And I think with Cooper DeJean being gone, who is my safety number one, the Eagles can't quite address it yet. Vic Fangio will be sad because he'll want a defensive player. He'll want a corner. The Eagles might like Nate Wiggins. I'm just not a big Nate Wiggins guy. I don't like 165-pound corners. We saw it with Emmanuel Forbes and what our boy A.J. Brown always does to that man. What is a 165-pound corner going to do to some of these receivers in the league? Did you see some of the receivers at the combine? 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". 210, 205, running 4.3s. I don't care that Nate Wiggins runs 4.3. Those dudes run 4.3 and they got 40 pounds on them. So it's not going to matter. Size to me matters in the NFL. I'm not taking a 165-pound corner. If Howie Roseman takes Nate Wiggins, I'm putting it on record right now on tape. I will be pissed. That being said, there's a player in this draft that in this mock fell. And I think Jeff Stoutland would be jumping for joy. And that is Washington offensive tackle Troy Fautanu. This guy is only 6'3". He's not your perfect size. Tell me if you've heard this before for what Jeff Stoutland's done. Not your prototypical 6'7" offensive lineman, but this dude has unbelievable feet, like Jason Peters level feet. 34-inch arms, so even though he's got a 6'3" frame, he's got really long arms that can keep defensive edge players like a Jared Verse off his frame. This guy's got the best feet in the draft. I mean, he moves like a tight end moves. And we just saw what that has done for a guy like Lane Johnson and Jason Kelce. This is a guy that can play literally, and I mean this, he can play left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, right tackle for Jeff Stoutland. So let's see where it shakes out. We've got Tyler Steen. We've got Lane Johnson. Now we've got Cam Jurgens probably sliding into center. Let's just add this kid and see where he fits in. And maybe he doesn't start year one. Maybe he starts year one, but eventually he's probably your Lane Johnson replacement. And in the meantime, he's probably a really good right guard. I know that's not what the sexy pick, but think of like a Isaac Seumalo level guard year 1 and 2 with the chance to become a Jason Peters level right tackle once Lane moves on. Like, this is a guy you got to take. If Cooper DeJean is there, I want Cooper DeJean. If Cooper DeJean is not there and Troy Fautanu is there, this is who I want.
No, my only thing is that who did they take? Who was the tackle that we took from Washington?
Tyler Steen.
No, there was a tackle. We took him in our first pick. We just traded him to the Texans. I mean the Titans.
Oh, remember? You're saying Andre Dillard a few years ago.
Yeah, Dillard. That's the only thing that kind of strikes me, with the Washington connection.
So this is a different level football player. Dillard had trouble. This dude is just. Don't worry about that. This kid is strong, powerful, sets the point of attack. He can move. Like, this kid is special. Like,
the way the board falls, this is a Philadelphia pick.
Right. That's kind of, me, like, Stoutland's going to win. Like, if our board gets to shot up, Stoutland will be like, well, there's a player I like. Like, that's just how he rolls. Like, there'll be somebody that he likes.
And I think if Turner falls the way the mock went, you have to go get him. I wouldn't want the Eagles to sit here at 22. And you know how they kind of let the draft unfold to them. But if Turner's on their board and he's high, and say he's a top 5 talent, and you can get him at 17, I think you go do that. But in this case, the Philadelphia Eagles with the 22nd pick take offensive tackle Troy Fautanu. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Fautanu.
I'm sorry, Fautanu.
Troy Fautanu.
Thank you. Fautanu, offensive tackle, Washington. This is an Eagles pick for sure. My only issue is that we have so many holes on defense. It's almost like they have to pick somebody on defense.
You
But
got some money. You can address it on free agency.
yeah, so all right. Houston, you're on the clock.
Yeah, so this is a tricky one for Houston. They're really good. They don't probably need receiver Nico Collins, although there's a lot of good receivers I like here. They probably don't need to take that. They just extended Dalton Schultz, which we talked about on our previous show, that we thought that's something, they probably should do, right? Like Dalton Schultz is a good football player. Don't let him go. Keep him with CJ. They seem to have a good connection. So tight end's not something they need. Not even if Bowers was there, I don't think they would be looking at taking Bowers. So I really think you're just looking like they need a pass rusher. I've talked about trading Reddick to them. So I think they're looking at edge here. I think the board, they probably wish a couple guys fell to them. They could use a defensive tackle.
Newton's good right there.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. So their edge, I think what they would be looking at is Chop Robinson versus Jerzon Newton. Do you want the interior pass rusher that is disruptive, or do you want the freak show kind of opposite Will Anderson? So why don't you pick this pick? I know this is kind of like Sharp's Corner, but we've kind of had dialogue here. Why don't you – I mean, that's where I'd be at. Why don't you pick between those two players, or if you see something else? I think it's a little early for T'Vondre Sweat, like your hulking defensive tackle that doesn't really pass rush. I don't think that's exactly what they need this early. I don't think that gets them over the hump. Now, I will say this. This is a team, before we pick, this is a team that is going to go after Christian Wilkins. So if they were to sign a Christian Wilkins, then obviously a guy like Newton would come off the board. They wouldn't need him. So that is kind of something to keep in mind. I do think they might address defensive tackle with Wilkins. Like that's their number one target in free agency, unless Chris Jones gets available.
Yeah, let me pull up their just give me a second, pull up their depth chart real quick. Let me see who they got. They're in a good spot. You know what I mean? Because I'm looking at their interior right now. They do have Rankins there. He's serviceable. Will Anderson obviously was hurt, but he's a captain, right? So that tells you what you think of him. Barnett was serviceable. Perryman was okay. Steven Nelson was good. Stingley's good. So they're in a really good spot, right? They're in a really good spot here. Tunzel on the left hand side. George Fant was, I think he was okay. Had a star in Quisenberry, right?
Their offensive line is good.
Yeah, the offensive line's pretty good. Looking at the board, if I'm picking here, I think I'll go Keenan Coleman here.
Okay.
I think I'll still go receiver. For me, Houston, Texas, I go Coleman. I go with the upside. I liked what sold me was his work ethic after the draft. He was one of the only players left because he wanted to prove to himself that he could hit a number. Even though nobody else was timing him officially, he still wanted it. That kind of showed me some of what his demeanor is to me, that he's a worker. And I think that, the rich get richer. Those receivers are already good. Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Noah Brown. I think you get an upgrade here over Noah Brown with Coleman. And you really see what this offense can do because this team is young. This team is young.
Very.
So I think I take maybe the best. I think the best receiver still on the board. Give me Keon Coleman, receiver, Florida State, Houston, Texas.
Yeah, I like that pick. And I will say this, again, just one last little thing on Houston. Houston's going to address some major needs in free agency, like with some proven bona fide players, whether that's they make a trade for a L'Jarius Sneed because Steven Nelson's their cornerback too, and they probably could go that route, or they go after Christian Wilkins, Chris Jones. So they're going to, like, when you come to the draft, you'll kind of know what they need because they're going to address a lot of things in free agency and they've got money to play with. That being said, I love this fit for Keon Coleman. So when you watch Keon Coleman on tape, let's go a little bit into his backstory. He was a high basketball recruit to Tom Izzo at Michigan State. Your typical 6'4", good athlete for a football player, but let's face it, the athletes that play basketball, that's a different breed of athlete. So he just couldn't cut it. Like his jumper wasn't there. He was a decent player, but just basketball wasn't in his future. So he was smart, switched to football, transferred to Florida State. People are going to knock him because he doesn't separate. Well, not every receiver has to separate to be good. Alshon Jeffrey did not separate, and he was good. But he had quarterbacks that knew how to throw that back shoulder fade, and he could jump ball, box out. Well, that's what Keon Coleman's really good at. And C.J. Stroud is a pinpoint passer. So if you're talking about a kind of QB that can throw a receiver open by putting that boundary lofted throw in the air that only one player can come down with, Keon Coleman is a type of player that can come down with those. And that's a little something different than a Schultz, Collins, or Adele give them. So I actually like this. Like he is a red zone jump ball weapon.
He's a fit. I think
perfect fit. Like he doesn't need to get open to win. He just needs to have the player boxed out and the ball to be thrown over his helmet.
And as your wide receiver 3/4,
yeah,
I think he wins that against the corner, right? Their corner.
I think Coleman would get in trouble if he gets drafted by a team that doesn't have an accurate quarterback, that doesn't have a wide receiver 1 or 2, and asks him to save them, like at Tennessee.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be able to overcome that. But if he can just,
right,
like you said, fly under the radar and just work his way up the depth chart, he could be something really good.
And they got a good vet in Woods there who can teach these boys how to play.
Good call.
Yeah. On the clock, the Dallas Cowboys at 24.
Yeah, I think this mock worked out great for them. They're sitting here either Amarius Mims or Tyler Guyton. You look no further. Mims, the thing about Mims, he's only played 8 games, 8 career starts, which is crazy. Like, how are you that talented and you could only stay on the field 8 games in college? So there are some major question marks that just go into like the person. Like, how badly does he fight through nagging injuries, right? Like, let's take it to the Sixers and Eagles, like spinoff Philly. Ben Simmons cannot play through nagging injuries, right? Some guys can play 75 games with a sore back. Tracy McGrady, Dwayne Wade, where you got to ice it after every game and they're still going to fight. And then you got dudes like Ben Simmons that if they have a hangnail and they can get an excuse to not play, they're not going to play. There's a lot of people I know that think Mims is a guy that like, oh, I've got a sore stomach. Okay, we'll go take a dump in the blue tent and come back out. Like some guys will do that. He just won't play. Like, so there's some things that are, if you're going to draft a guy this high, you need him to love football, or you would hope he loves football. And I don't know about that for Mims. So for me,
that doesn't sound like a Cowboy. That doesn't sound like a fit.
So for me, although the talent is there, I mean, the dude's 340 pounds, can move his feet, and the guy had 11-inch hands. Like, he looks like a freak. I just don't know if he loves football. I know Tyler Guyton loves football. Played at TCU, then transferred to OU. So Dallas is going to know him. He's in their region. They've been scouting him hard. Hell, he played in Dallas area. He grew up in the area. So, I mean, they're going to know this kid in and out. Tyler Guyton, just if they, again, one of those picks where if he's there, they will run to the podium.
For the 24 pick, the Cowboys select.
He was about to say Cowgirls.
Tyler Guyton, Oklahoma tackle. Yeah, I like that
funny.
pick. I like that pick. The Packers are on the clock. It says corner. I don't like Wiggins a cold like the Steelers. I feel like Green Bay. They pick well. They pick Packers.
Yeah, and think of like their corner. So between those two, I would definitely be leaning Rakestraw. Like Rakestraw and Wiggins are both small. But Wiggins is your classic, I'm going to mirror you and I'm going to cover you like a Forbes, but I'm probably not going to tackle. Rakestraw's small, but he'll come up and hit you. I think Lassiter is a good scheme fit. He's kind of like your Kool-Aid McKinstry. Like he's just got a high floor, smart kid, physical. He just might not have the long speed you'd really like, the Georgia corner. He's a good football player. He would fit the Packers. I think round 1's a little early for him. They don't need corner. They don't need tight end. I mean, they're in a good spot. They're another team like the Eagles that's not sexy, but they always stockpile offensive linemen. That's just something they believe in as a foundation. Amarius Mims is definitely not their cup of tea. There's no way they would go after a player like that. A Jordan Morgan definitely is a type of player they would go after, a guy that just loves football, maybe a guard, maybe a tackle. He kind of reminds me of David Bakhtiari, where he doesn't have the greatest traits, but he's just a good football player. He would totally fit what the Packers like to do.
I like the Rakestraw.
Yeah, Rakestraw is a good fit. He reminds me of like a Jair Alexander, small, fast, but will hit you. So, I mean, I think you're kind of looking at a Jordan Morgan or an Enos Rakestraw.
Yeah, I'll go with Green Bay Packers. Corners in need here. Let me just bring up who.
Pass rush is a need. I mean, you could go Chop Robinson. I mean, Chop's a kind of player they like, a physical freak. They like Big Ten players. We could probably stop the Chop slide. I mean, he's going to be high on my board at this point.
Yeah, I kind of like that a little bit more.
They like big physical players. Like, so I do think Chop fits their profile. Like, to me, Chop and Jordan Morgan definitely fit Packer style players.
All right, we'll make the pick, bro. You going Chop Robinson?
Yeah, let's go Chop. I feel like this is – I just don't see him sliding further.
All right. Homegrown. Not homegrown, but, PA.
And I will say, if this happens, if Chop were to be here, the Buffalo Bills better be making a phone call. Like, they need pass rush, and Von Miller's long in the tooth. Like, if they could kind of get Chop to fall in range, they need to be making a move.
With the 25th pick, the Green Bay Packers select Chop Robinson, edge, defensive end, Penn State. The Bucks are on the clock.
Yeah, so we saw they already signed Mike Evans.
Yep.
Obviously overpaid him a little, but hey, when you think about that contract, think about two things. David Light, their GM, Mike Evans was his very first pick he ever made as a general manager in the NFL. So that pick has sentimental value to the person, not just the GM. Like, you're talking as a human being. This guy, like, these guys have a connection that'll always be tied together. I don't think he wanted Evans to leave and go kind of help another team win. I think it's a legacy play here, like kind of like Jason Kelce. Like, we want you to stay here for the rest of your career. So here's money. We'll overpay you, but you're staying here. Baker's going to stay because Baker's not going to find another team willing to pay him and a relationship with a Mike Evans. Baker's going to stay, so I'm assuming they've got that sorted out. They're pretty good at O-line. They could use a pass rush. They could use corner. I think they really need corner here. Their two corners are getting old.
Yeah.
Their two corners just weren't reliable this year. They need more speed.
Yep.
So I think it's a Rakestraw or a Wiggins. This is probably kind of where Wiggins' fall probably stops.
Yeah, I like the Wiggins fit here. I do.
Yeah, I agree. I like Wiggins. I think this is probably where his fall stops.
Yep. With the 26th pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Nate Wiggins. Corner. Clemson. Sorry. had flashback.
I'm going first round, baby. I'm going first round. Give me that first round money.
Yeah, give me that first round, right? Nate Wiggins, corner. The Arizona Cardinals are back on the clock.
Yeah. Man, this kind of worked out pretty well for them.
Yeah, I think so too. If
you've got a Rakestraw, they need some cornerback help. Rakestraw Jr. is a really good fit. Kamari Lassiter's a good fit. Jordan Morgan's a good fit. I mean, you got Paris Johnson Jr. last year at left tackle. If you were to get a Jordan Morgan, who kind of seems more like a right tackle, that kind of gives you your two pillars. So I think they would be in a really good spot here. You could add another wide receiver. I mean, heck, you could go Harrison Jr. and then tag it with someone else and really make Murray happy that way. So this would be really good for them if this is how it worked out. I also think they need some defensive help here.
That's where I was going.
Their defense is bad.
I think Newton is a good pick here.
The safety? Oh, Newton. I thought you said, okay, yeah, I agree. No. I agree. Jer'Zhan Newton here. I totally agree. I was thinking it's either Rakestraw or Newton, and to me, I like Newton here. Just harder to find bigger guys.
Talent. You just need talent on that side.
Agreed. He's got the most violent hands in the draft for the defensive tackles. He just lacks the foot speed you would love of a prototypical pass rusher, but his hands, like, he displaces offensive linemen when he hits them.
Yeah. Jonathan Gannon comes up to Newton. You ready to kill people?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's what the draft interview is going to be like. I went defense here, and I went just because of who Gannon is. Mm-hmm. Defensive-minded coach here. You got this, like you get an influx of talent walking in the door when you got first you just got Harrison Jr. walking in. So that shouldn't be an A+ right there. That should be A++, right? Mm-hmm. This is just talent-wise. But you get a guy who was in Newton, arguably the best interior lineman in the draft, if he could RSVP, and you get him late, in the pick. I really like this pick here, for them. Just rebuilding.
Yeah, they just need pieces. They're so far away. They just need to add good players, and this would be great. If they left the first round with Jer'Zhan Newton and Marvin Harrison Jr., their organization would be thrilled.
Correct. With the 27th pick in the draft, the Arizona Cardinals select Jer'Zhan Newton, defensive line, Illinois. Oh, where do the Bills go?
Yeah, so the Bills, like I said, they were probably sitting there wishing Chop Robinson fell to them, but the Packers do smart things and kind of like last year where everyone got the sense Rashee Rice. The Bills wanted Rashee Rice, and the Chiefs were like, yeah, not so fast. There's probably just the Bills get sniped in the draft, and I'll leave it at that. Maybe they leak information. I don't know what it is. They're not as buttoned up as other, but two teams that seem to get sniped, meaning other organizations know what they want to do and seem to make trades right in front of them a lot, is the Jets and the Bills. So I think our little mock here is perfect with the Packers, like maybe catch and win the Bills like Chop Robinson and stealing them. So we're kind of sending the Bills free falling as to what they'd want to do. And then Newton gets stolen out from under them, and now they'd be like, well, shit. Yeah, so I think they'd probably go offense here. Maybe they would go Rakestraw because Tre'Davious White's getting older, but a lot of money. But I think if you're looking at Rakestraw or if you're looking at a playmaker to help Josh Allen, you probably got to go playmaker here with how good the receivers are on the board. We just talked about, I don't like Gabe Davis. He was a burner, but he had unreliable hands. Well, Brian Thomas is a big burner with reliable hands. So just make it pretty simple. Just go ahead and just get Brian Thomas Jr. and basically get a more reliable Gabe Davis.
With the 20th pick, the Buffalo Bills take Brian Thomas Jr., receiver, LSU. I like the fit. That's who his comp is anyway, right?
Yeah, pretty similar players.
Yeah.
Except for, like I said, I Thomas Jr., he's got better technique at the point of attack catching the football.
With Detroit, the NFC team to maybe even beat next year, Detroit's on the clock.
Yeah, so they would be jumping for joy if this is how this worked. They need cornerback help. Maybe they're the team that goes out there. Remember, I just talked about Darius Williams as a veteran that was released by the Jags to clear some cap space. He's kind of a guy on a one-year deal that would be really smart for Detroit to sign, kind of come on a one-year run, see if he can come win a title with us. If they don't address cornerback in the free agent market, or if they don't make a trade for L'Jarius Sneed and then sign him, Enos Rakestraw is exactly the kind of player they like. He's like a poor man's Devin Witherspoon, and they kind of liked that last year in the draft before they went in a different direction. They focused on offense. So this year it's time to focus on defense. Enos Rakestraw.
With the 29th pick, the Detroit Lions select Enos Rakestraw Jr., corner, Missouri. Baltimore Ravens are on the clock.
Yeah, so
I'll take this pick. I like this pick.
Yeah.
I think that with the Baltimore Ravens, it's always been how can we help Lamar in this receiving core. I just think it's such a glaring need of receiver when your tight end Mark Andrews is starting to age a little bit, got hurt, even though he came back, didn't really do much. They just need to get him help, and I think they need speed. I really do. I think Adonai Mitchell makes a lot of sense, but I think Worthy got himself in the first round with that 40. I really do. I don't like. Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, they kind of have that already, right? Didn't he get suspended? Who was it who got suspended?
Well, they've got Zay Flowers, who's kind of that little firecracker, and they have Odell. I actually think they need that big Adonai Mitchell, like contested catch, high catch radius with speed. I mean, Adonai Mitchell ran sub 4.4, and he's a big dude. That would be kind of a guy that gives you that big catch, long speed, and catch radius, kind of that Lamar hasn't had, to be honest. Because remember, they've given him Zay Flowers and Hollywood Brown and Odell, but those are three small receivers. He's never had Adonai Mitchell.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you were going receiver, I think the bigger body receiver is a better fit. And I think, remember, Mitchell can fly. It's not like, obviously he's not running 4.2, but he's running 4.3 with 40. He's running 4.3 with 40 more pounds.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I forgot. When I was talking, I was like, hold up, they got somebody like, Xavier Worthy. I was thinking they needed somebody speed, but it was Zay Flowers. So no, you're absolutely right. I like the pick. With the 30th pick in the draft, the Baltimore Ravens select Adonai Mitchell, receiver, Texas.
Yeah, I think that would be a home run. Like I think Lamar would be. I mean, you got to maximize Lamar. That's your window. You got to maximize Lamar.
San Fran can go almost anywhere, I think.
Yeah, they don't have many holes.
They don't have many holes.
I think the offensive line board kind of got shot to shit here for them. This would be so interesting to me. I love how this mock turned out because this would be so interesting to me if these were the last two teams to pick and these were the last three tackles on the board. Both these teams, there's almost no doubt about it that the Niners need an offensive tackle badly, right tackle, and the Chiefs need an offensive tackle badly. And Mims literally looks like Trent Williams, but kind of like what we've talked about. Looks like Tarzan, kind of plays like Jane. That just doesn't really seem like a Chiefs or a Niners kind of player.
They don't fit the Niners.
He looks like a player like that, but his character, his football character, and I'm not talking about the person as like he's a bad dude. I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about like a Mekhi Becton. Like, do you want football, or are you just okay with like making first round money and then in 4 years you're like nobody? So to me, Jordan Morgan is such a safer pick that he feels like a Chiefs or Niners pick over Mims, despite Mims having way more talent and upside. I just feel like those teams are going to go with the better football player, and that's Jordan Morgan. I think these two teams would be battling for Morgan right here. That would be so interesting if this is how it came down to. Give me Jordan Morgan, right tackle.
The San Francisco 49ers, the San Francisco 40 fucking Winers, with the 31st pick Jordan Morgan, tackle, Arizona. And the Chiefs are on the board. I I like the Mims fit here though for you, even though he could. I mean, do they need him now? Could he sit?
I like the kid just below him. If you look at what that kid just below him tested, he's not that far off in terms of an athlete. And I just, again, 8 starts in 3 years in college. That to me is such a red flag that it's so hard for me to get over.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking of Andy. Andy likes linemen who can play multiple positions. He always has.
Yes.
So I don't know much about Kinsley.
He is. Let me pull up his. Let me just pull up his stuff for you because he measured out. And Kingsley's 21 years old, so you're talking about super, super young.
Yeah.
Where is his?
They said receivers on here, but I'm not sure if anybody's up on receiver to take.
You could go receiver here. Like this is another fit where I've talked, like a jump ball specialist. Like, or a Ladd McConkey. Like, I feel like a Ladd McConkey or a Xavier Legette. Those are 2 guys I actually like more than a Worthy or a Wilson. Like, of those guys you've got there, Legette and Ladd McConkey are my 2 highest rated receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Ladd McConkey's concern is injuries. He is a fearless over the middle. Like he'll catch it over the middle, but he gets blasted, and he's not a very big dude. So think of a guy that plays like a Puka Nacua or a Cooper Kupp, but at like 190 pounds, not at like 215 pounds. So durability is a major, major concern at 185 pounds, guy that likes to go over the middle. So in my opinion, if you were going receiver, like Xavier Legette with Patrick Mahomes, like holy shit, that would be a scary, scary proposition for the rest of the league. If you had Xavier Legette, who kind of is like a Terrell Owens, like if you just look at him, kind of sloppy hands, but like 225-pound freight train, like that's who he is. He's Terrell Owens. He might not be that refined, but again, Terrell Owens wasn't that refined, but he went to Bill Walsh, and then he went to Steve Mariucci, and then he went to Steve Young, and then he like became refined because of coaching. Like, to me, Xavier Legette would have a chance to be a special, special football player if he went to the Chiefs. Like, a special football player. So, that's kind of where I'd be at. Give him – like, the Chiefs are going to go with high traits. They're either going to go with an offensive lineman that has immense traits, which is Mims or Kingsley Suamataia, or they're going to go with just a freak show receiver. And I don't think it's your Troy Franklin or Xavier Worthy because Andy Reid doesn't like 165-pound dudes. He's going to go with a 230-pound receiver.
So we're going Xavier?
I'll let you pick. You go offensive, either go with Kingsley or go with Xavier. Those would be the picks for me. Choose offensive lineman or receiver because I think that's where they'll look too.
Here's a great question. When's the last time Andy Reid took a receiver in the first round?
That's a good question. It would probably be that he was in charge of. I would think it would have to be, was he the coach when we took
Are you talking about from Missouri?
Yes. Why am I drawing a blank?
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank too. Shit.
Oh my gosh.
That's terrible. That is so bad.
Yes,
It was
I think that's who it is. I think that's right.
But he was a monster in Missouri.
Yeah.
Was Legette like that?
So Legette was very traitsy and then when Spencer Rattler showed up, he exploded when he had a quarterback who could get him the ball. Like he had a dominant year in the SEC this year. He led the SEC in I think he led the SEC in broken tackles after the catch. Like, so not necessarily yak yards where he just ran away from everyone, but like where once he just reminds me of Terrell Owens. And I mean that. Like, he reminds me of Terrell Owens. Now, I don't know if I have the career of Owens because Owens had hella quarterbacks with him his whole career. So Legette would have to have hella quarterbacks with him his whole career. But if you start with freaking Mahomes, Doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay true to Andy, and I'm gonna go the tackle.
Okay, I like that. I mean, Andy's a former offensive lineman himself, so I mean that's his
Yeah.
bread and butter.
And we broke our mock. Did we break our mock? I think we broke our mock. It froze on me. All right, it froze on me. But with the 32nd pick in the draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select offensive tackle. What was his name from BYU?
Kingsley Sumatia.
Kingsley Sumatua. I said that wrong anyway.
That's good.
It's close enough.
A lot of people I know call him BYU.
All right, and that concludes our mock draft sharp version 1. We won't do too many of these. We'll come all together when you see everybody doing a mock at the end here. But we wanted to get this mock draft out post combine. Now that we know that the tags are out, free agency is still up next. But had a lot of fun with this one.
Yeah, I think we did a good job. It'll be curious to see how mock 1 turns out with the actual draft, because like I'm looking at our picks and like although it was off the cuff, there was a lot of thought that actually went into a lot of these picks, like scheme fit, organizational fit. And so this isn't like your standard run of the mill, just putting players in its spot. Like there's a lot of thought that went into this, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I agree. So thanks everybody for watching. If you made it to the end, make sure you stick around. There'll probably be another video for you to watch. Our next video will be tackling and fixing the AFC North, the hood of the NFL, as they say. And we can't wait for myself, Sharp, and Ernie B to get going with that. Make sure you hit that subscribe, hit the like, and make sure you drop in the comments once again. Mock Sharp's Corner, actually. Sharp's Corner in the comments. Let's go. That's C Sharp. I'm Moss Money. This is Money Pot Betting. See you guys on the next show.
Let us know what you think of your team's pick.